Hello, what's up, guys? It's Brad with College SportsCast. I have got a little bit of new equipment here tonight, so trying tons of different things. Brad with College SportsCast again. We are glad you're with us. We're here for our Big Ten preview and prediction show. And check out part of our new Season 2 intro. All right, guys, welcome back. It's Brad with College SportsCast. I think John Hammond's going to be on here to join me here in just a little bit. Again, we are here to do our Big Ten preview and prediction show presented by the Fanboys. We're also featured on Let's Talk Sports, Sideline Sports, the Real Fresh channel, and WSBN TV Channel 30. WSBN TV Channel 30. You can find us in the comfort of your own home on Roku, Apple TV, Fire TV, as long as you download the BoxCast app. Once you download the BoxCast app, look for World Sports Broadcasting Network. And once you find them, then you can find us on their Channel 30 for WSBN TV, World Sports Broadcasting Network. And again, you can find us on Roku, Apple TV, Fire TV. So we are a little bit of everywhere. Of course, our own YouTube channel, our own Facebook channel as well. You can find us, and we will be happy to have you guys join us. And I appreciate you guys being with us. So looks like we got a comment in. Josh says, well, dang, I thought we might talk some UK. No, I'm having my Big Ten preview show tonight, Josh. Yeah. I'm having my Big Ten preview show tonight, so we're doing a little bit of football. We've tried to do the Pac-12 twice, and I've been having some technical issues. So I appreciate it, Josh. Josh says that he'll still watch. So yeah, we're kind of covering we're going to be covering the Big Ten tonight. I'm kind of waiting for Hammonds to jump on here with me. But if he don't get on here pretty quick, I'll go ahead and get started. So the first team that I'm going to cover tonight is going to be Indiana out of the Big Ten. They're going to be the first team that I cover tonight. Indiana Hoosiers out of the Big Ten. So last year they went 4-8, 2-7 in the Big Ten. Tom Allen is their head coach. He is in his 8th season. He is 30-40. He had one good season. That was the COVID year in 2020. Seemed like they went like 6-3 or something like that and had one good season. The last 25 games, okay, Indiana is 6-19. 6-19 in their last 25 games. So Indiana's got to get something going this year, I would think, for a coach in his 8th season. That would be my take. They've had 0 bowls since 1991. Okay. All right. So from there, I'm going to talk about keys to the season. So for me, a key to their season is going to be passing the ball, completing some passes. They've got a quarterback, Jackson, that transferred in from Tennessee. And they have got to be able to get their offense going, making some more big plays down the field, maybe hit a few home runs down the field, and open up their ground game. If they can hit some passes and open up their ground game, I think that's going to be a key for the season for Indiana. Top transfer in, of course, I've already mentioned him, is Tavian Jackson, quarterback that transferred in from Tennessee. He's actually Trace Jackson Davis's brother, who played at Indiana, basketball. So he's got some ties there at Indiana, of course, and transferred in and will more than likely be their starter, would be my guess. Transfer out, their biggest loss would be the linebacker McCullough. He transferred to Oklahoma. I think that's going to be a big loss for them in the middle of the defense. So I think that's their biggest loss in the transfer portal. Key player, again, I'm going to kind of hit the passing game. I'm going to say it's Cam Camper, a wide receiver, senior wide receiver, with Tavian Jackson. They really need to, like I said, crank up the passing game, open up the ground game for them, hit some longer passes, hit some home runs. And, Cam Camper is 6'2", 200 pounds. He's a JUCO transfer. He's a senior this year. He had 2 100-yard games last year in the first 4 outings. So before he tore an ACL. So he's back. I think it's going to be majorly important for Indiana to get him involved in the game as much as possible. Key game for Indiana, I marked the Louisville game. It's at Louisville, September the 16th. And, if Indiana could steal a win at Louisville, then maybe they have a chance to make a little bit of noise and go bowling. I think that would be an absolute key game at the beginning of the season, which would be about the 3rd week of the season. September 16th would be. And it is at Louisville. So it is a true road game. Their best players, I've already mentioned a couple of them, so I'll mention a couple of more. Aaron Casey, linebacker, he's a senior. You got Matthew Bedford, that is an offensive tackle that I think is going to be an absolute key for them. Edge rusher Andrew Carter is a senior, and on that defense, I think he's going to be an absolute key as well. So I think, and then the ones that I've kind of already mentioned. My phone buzzed. I'm checking to see if John's coming. I think so. I don't see John saying anything. So, all right. Fun stat for Indiana to kind of go with, and sometimes these aren't so fun, just so you can know. last year, something they're definitely going to have to improve on. Their time of possession was only 25 minutes a game, and their opponent was nearly 35 minutes a game. That is something that is absolutely going to have to turn for them to have a much better season this year for Indiana. I'll kind of give you guys a schedule outlook. So September 2nd is their first game. They play Ohio State at home to open the season, a conference game. Then they play Indiana State at Louisville, Akron at home, at Maryland, open date, at Michigan, Rutgers at home, at Penn State, Wisconsin at home, at Illinois, Michigan State at home, and at Purdue. That is their schedule. I have them their win total set at 4.5 for Indiana. I think that's if you look around at like DraftKings and a few things, 4.5 is kind of where their season win total is being set. And for me, when you look at that schedule, I have a hard time coming up with them going over and going even 5 wins, much less 6. If they could get that big win at Louisville, then that would be 5. I have them going 4-8 with that schedule. Like I said, that Louisville game would be a key game to try to get them to 5 and have a chance at the end of the season to maybe knock off Michigan State at home or Purdue on the road or something like that and get to that magical 6th win and get to a bowl game. All right. The next one I'm going to do, guys, is going to be Illinois. Brett Bielema. I can't never say his name. Y'all can make fun of me as I go along here. Is he going to, he kind of had an uptick last year with, I think they went 8-5 last year, went to a bowl game, and kind of had a little uptick with Illinois last year. They played tremendous defense. They owned the turnover margin last year, controlled the clock, ran the ball great, and had a good season. Are they going to be able to build off of that? That's kind of the question mark around Illinois inside the Big Ten this year, with a few other teams that are probably a little better. Is Illinois going to be able to build off of that? This is his 3rd year there. He's 13-12 now, but he's had some success in the Big Ten. Brett has. So yeah, he was 8-5 last year, 5-4 in the Big Ten. Keys to the season. I think one of their keys, they kind of have a young secondary, and I think that young secondary needs to grow up and play good football early in the season. They play Toledo early. Toledo can definitely pass the ball. They play Jalen Daniels with Kansas early. So, a few other teams they play is Penn State. So, with Drew Allar, and, so they have some tough games. I think one of the keys is going to be for that young secondary to grow up pretty fast. Illinois, their top transfer in was probably at quarterback. Was Luke Altmaier from Ole Miss transferred in. And their biggest loss is probably Brian Hightower from that transferred out and went to California. Altmaier is just a sophomore. He's got 3 years of eligibility to go. So he's got some time to grow into the job. They may need him this year, though, to be spectacular. So, but I think he's probably their top transfer in. Key players, I'm going to give it to their running back, Reggie Love. He's a junior. I think he should be ready to go. He played behind Chase Brown, and I think he should be ready to go. I think Reggie Love is going to be used often in that offense, and I think he's going to be an absolute key player for them to do anything remotely like what they did last year. He's going to have to be a key player for them. Key game. My key game that I have for them is September the 30th at Purdue. The Wisconsin game is big, and they have road dates at Iowa and Minnesota that might be a little bit bigger. But Illinois always seems to have a problem with Purdue. And I think that's a game that they probably should have marked on their calendar. It's a game they need to, to win, to match the season that they had last year or better. I think that Purdue game, September 30th, is a game that they need to win. All right, best players on this Illinois team. I'm going to give it to a couple of defensive ends. They got some junior edge rushers, Newton and Randolph. I think that is going to be a real big key for them on the defensive side. I've already mentioned a couple of offensive players with a quarterback and the running back. I'll name one more. Isaiah Williams is a junior wide receiver, and I think he needs to play big for Illinois to have a great season. I think he needs to play big as well. And I think those are some of the better players that they have, the ones that I mentioned. There's a few more that can be mentioned, but I'm trying to keep it to about 3 on that. So, all right, fun stat for Illinois. Again, sometimes these aren't so fun when you're talking about each team. Illinois had a ton of penalties last year. They had 84 compared to their opponents only had 64. I think that is quite a few, 2 to 3 more penalties per game. And that can rack up and cause you some issues. And I think that needs to be more leveled, more balanced out this year for Illinois. So that's kind of a fun stat that I have for them. I'll give you guys a schedule look real quick. So they start September the 2nd with Toledo. Toledo, like I said, their second game is at Kansas. Then they come back home and play Penn State. They get Florida Atlantic at home, at Purdue, Nebraska at home, at Maryland, Wisconsin at home, open date. November is at Minnesota, Indiana at home, at Iowa, and Northwestern at home. So looking over their schedule, I have their win total set at 7 wins for the year. So, um, you know, I think that there's going to be a couple of games. That Purdue game that I was talking about, September the 30th. I think if they could get that game on the road at Purdue, maybe they can get to 8 wins and be 8-4. Um, there's a few games on here. At Kansas is not going to be easy. And of course you play Wisconsin at home, won't be easy. At Iowa, won't be easy. I can see them going 7-5 is where I've kind of got them. And if they win the bowl, then they would be 8-5 and match what they did last year. I do believe it's possible they could get to 8-4. But like I said, I think they're going to have to win. I think that Purdue game is going to be a big one to be able to get to that 8-win level in the regular season. So that's where I have them predicting their record there. I have them at 7-5 for Illinois. All right. The next one I'm going to go to is Iowa. Iowa, you just never know what you're going to get with Iowa. So I'm going to start with, they had one of the best defenses in the country, and they always do, just about. Offense last year was putrid. Putrid. You take away the one Ohio State game last year where they gave up 54 points to Ohio State, and they had the best defense in the country. They had the one game where they gave up 54 points to Ohio State. They went 8-5 last year, 5-4 in the Big Ten. They've made some changes on offense, and we'll kind of get to that. Keys to the season. So I talked about their defense. They do kind of have – so there's a little radar here with Iowa. So when a team completes 60% or more of their passes, Iowa was 1-5 last year. When they're less than 60% on their passing, they were 7-0. They're kind of ball hawks, and they intercept a lot of passes, and they play really great, sound defense. So, if they can keep people from passing above 60%, I think they're going to have a great season. So that's where I got that. Top transfers and biggest loss. The top transfer in, I think, is a linebacker, Nick Johnson from Virginia. And their biggest loss is also a linebacker, Justin Jacobs. He left and went to Oregon. So I think that is their biggest loss. Jackson has over 300, almost 325 tackles from Virginia the last 3 years. So I think that is a big time pickup for the Iowa Hawkeyes, especially losing Jack in the middle of the defense, Jack Campbell. So I think that's going to be a huge pickup for them. And like I said, Justin Jacobs off to Oregon is definitely probably, I think, their biggest loss. Key players. I don't see how you can pick anybody else. Their key player is going to be Cade McNamara. Quarterback, he's a senior. He is transferring in from Michigan. I mean, he took Michigan to the college football playoffs year before last, got hurt. J.J. McCarthy come in last year, led Michigan back to the college football playoffs, and Cade McNamara transfers to Iowa. It's a huge, huge pickup for them and going to be absolutely key for them to get some kind of offense going around Cade McNamara. So their key game for me, I have their key game listed at Wisconsin, October the 14th. Minnesota is a home game right after. But I think that Wisconsin game at Wisconsin is going to be an absolute key game for Iowa this year. You know, Wisconsin is going to be a much improved team. And if you could go there and still win against the Badgers on the road, I think that's going to bode well for Iowa to have the kind of season that they are accustomed to and what they're used to. Best players, I've mentioned a couple with Nick Jackson, the linebacker, and I've mentioned Cade McNamara. So I'm going to mention a couple of other players that I think that at least should get some mention here. Cooper DeJean, their cornerback. He is a junior cornerback. I think he's going to be one of the best players on the team this year for Iowa. Offensive guard Connor Colby is a junior. I think he's going to be a key player for them as well. And then, of course, they always have pretty good defensive ends. So, I'm gonna give it to Dante Craig, the defensive end from that's a junior for Iowa. That's going to be who I'm going to talk about for them on their best players. Fun facts, like I said, I mention this every time. Fun facts are not always too fun for the fans of that team. Sometimes they're not too fun, but they're fun for the rest of us.
Yeah.
That's what matters. They're fun for the rest of us. Iowa last year averaged 17 points a game. And that is almost minuscule. With McNamara coming in,
pretty bad.
What's up, man?
I said that's pretty bad. Yeah.
Yeah, man. I mean,
when you're winning games 5-3, I mean, you're not doing real hot. Let's just be honest.
Oh man, I mean, some of it's just terrible, really. So let me give you an example here. What I'm talking about. Last year, on the season, Iowa scored 25 touchdowns. Ohio State scored 75.
That's not good.
Okay.
And the thing, and another thing that they did too, they ranked bottom of the league in third down and red zone offense. That's going to have to improve. It's not. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It's just going to have to get better.
25 to 75 is a massive, massive difference. Massive.
No doubt.
And there's no telling out of those 25 how many of them the defense actually scored.
Yeah, I mean, their defense is what kept them in games mostly last year.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm not even playing. There's no telling, how many of them the defense actually scored. I don't know. If you're an Iowa fan and you're on here with us and you know how many offensive touchdowns they scored, please put it in the comments. I would love to go back and hit that before we get off the air. Anyways, a look at their schedule. I'm going to look at Iowa's schedule real quick. They start September 2nd at home, Utah State, at Iowa State, Western Michigan at home, at Penn State, Michigan State at home, Purdue at home, at Wisconsin, Minnesota at home, open date. And then November is at Northwestern, Rutgers at home, Illinois at home, and at Nebraska.
Well,
So that's how
their end of the year is a little bit more manageable than their first of the year.
Yeah, the middle of their schedule is the beef. They play at Penn State, home against Michigan State, home against Purdue, at Wisconsin, Minnesota at home. You know, so that's kind of the beef for their schedule. But when you look at their schedule, they miss Ohio State. They miss Michigan.
That's unheard of, to be honest.
Yeah, you know, they don't play either one of those. They do play at Penn State. So, you know, when you look at their schedule, I think it's manageable. I've set their win total at 8. Do you think they match or go over and under at 8?
I think it's probably 7, probably at least. You know, their offense, like you said, their offense is going to have to get better. It's just.
Well, they did bring in Cade McNamara, so
yeah, that helps. Getting a good quarterback helps. So.
Yeah, I mean, I expect to see a little bit more from them offensively this year. I actually have them at 8-4 in the regular season. That's where I have them at.
Well, you know, like I said, you beat teams 5-3 during the season. I mean, you're not doing too hot offensively. You know what I mean?
I have them matching it and going 8-4. Is what I have for this coming year for them.
Yeah.
So, all right. The next team we're going to go to is Maryland. We're going to go back up about Maryland real quick. All right.
Maryland.
So, 5th-year head coach. They went 8-5 last year, 4-5 in the Big Ten. He is 21-28 at Maryland. Mike Loxley is their coach. They did kind of have a little breakthrough last year. Like I said, they went 8-5 overall. Of course, they still are winless over the last few years between Ohio State, Michigan, and Penn State. But you know, we'll see if they can get one of those this year.
Which, you know, their offense is going to be pretty decent because, you know, they got Tua's brother.
Yep.
And they got the Raheem Jarrett. They got Dante Demas and tongue-tied, Jacob Copeland, the transfer from Florida. So their offense is going to be pretty decent. But the biggest issue.
Oh yeah, their offense will be pretty explosive.
The issue with Maryland was the defense last year. They was giving up 38 points a game, man. Like,
right.
They was giving up so much yardage. I think it was like 6.23 yardage a play, and that just can't happen.
Well, so kind of to go with that, you're talking about their offense, and you're talking about what they gave up on defense. So my key to the season this year is they've got to find some consistency. So in the games where their offense was like rocking, they won.
Yeah.
The games where their offense run up against a pretty good team or a good defense, and their offense didn't look great and didn't play great, they lost. You know, and they've got to get more consistent and be able to hang with, you know, the Ohio States and the Michigans and the, you know, a little better. I'm not saying they can just wipe the floor with them or nothing, but I mean, you know, you got to hang with them a little bit is all I'm saying.
Yeah. I think, you know, they got the freshman, the running back, true freshman Ramon Brown. He's going to be really good for them. He could slide in there and be their running back, their big threat out of the backfield. Because I think Fleet Davis, he's gone now. He was their main running back cog last year.
Right.
So, which they add a few guys in the portal, which, they're going to have a decent offense. They put up some
Yeah.
points
So
last year.
one of their top players I have from FIU is a wide receiver, Tyrese Chambers.
Yeah,
You
Chambers.
mentioned one from Florida. Yeah. I think they've got some wide receivers, I think, that are going to be, key to them with their offense this year. One of their biggest losses, they did lose a defensive tackle to Auburn. His last name is Nasili Kite.
Yeah,
And
the biggest thing for Maryland is they returned 5 guys um, up front in the offensive line. That should help a little bit.
oh yeah, absolutely, 100%. Key players. One of their key players for me is Donnell Brown. He's a defensive end. I think their defense desperately needs somebody, a playmaker on the that can come in there and wreak some havoc. And I think that Donnell Brown has that potential. Now, whether he can do it game in and game out with some of the better teams in the Big Ten, I don't know. But he's a junior this year. He's had a few years in the system now and there and in the Big Ten, and I think he has potential to step up. All right, I'll go on to key game. So my key game for Maryland is at Michigan State September 23rd. I think that's going to be one of their key games. Michigan State has had a down year last year. I don't think the recruiting is what it was the year before. I'm not really expecting Michigan State to be a powerhouse this year in the Big Ten. And if Maryland could go in and win on the road in Michigan State, I think that'd be a big game.
I think I got confused on that little deal. They're losing Rakeem Garrett and Copeland to the NFL. I got confused on that. That was last year's preview. I don't know why I was thinking. They brought in Caden Prater. They brought him from West Virginia, the Chambers kid, to help replace those losses. I don't know what I was thinking with those guys. I guess I must have looked over it or something.
Yeah.
But Tua's brother does come back though. That was one of the.
Oh, that's all right. Oh yeah. Tua's brother's back. He's back.
He's back.
Yeah. All right. So I said key players. So my best players, of course, is Tua's brother, and I don't know how you say his name, to be quite honest with you. So I'm not even gonna go there. But he's been there the entire time. He's a senior. He's been there the entire time. They have a running back that's a sophomore by Hemby is his name. Roman Hemby. I think he's going to be a key for them. And then their offensive tackle, Glaze. And then if I was to mention one more, it would be a linebacker, Barnum.
Yeah, Barnum's back. Yeah.
Barnham. He's a linebacker. He's just a sophomore. So I think that can be some of their better players on the team this year. We'll move on to fun facts. So when you're looking at fun facts on Maryland, They gave up 43 sacks last year.
It's a lot.
They gave up 43 sacks last year. That has to improve for their good quarterback to play good and take them to another level.
Mm-hmm.
I
think the biggest loss for them was their tight end, C.J. Dupree,
yeah.
or he transferred to Alabama. I think that's one because he had a pretty good year last year, and I think he's one of their go-to targets, and I think he was a big loss in the transfer portal. I think.
All right, that's fair. I mean, there's definitely more than the one that I picked all the time. I want you to chime in, say some stuff too. So, all right. So I'm going to take a look at Maryland's schedule, and they start September the 2nd, home against Townsend. Then they play home against Charlotte and home against Virginia. Then they play at Michigan State. So that's why I kind of picked that game. Then they play home against Indiana. All right. So they possibly, if they could steal that game at Michigan State, they possibly could be sitting at 5-0 if they steal that game at Michigan State. Mm-hmm. Then they play at Ohio State, Illinois at home, open date at Northwestern, Penn State at home, at Nebraska, Michigan at home, and at Rutgers. That's their schedule. I have their over and under win total. I have it actually setting at 6.5.
Yeah,
is where I have their over and under win total.
That's where I think I'm going to be going as well.
I mean, when you look at their schedule, like I said, they have a very good possibility of at least being 4-1 to start the season out. Then they do play at Ohio State, and then they get Penn State and Michigan at home. So, their schedule definitely toughens up towards the end. I'm going to say that they have a really good chance at least being 7 wins and being above the 6.5. Mm-hmm. and going at least 7-5 in the regular season.
Yeah, that's pretty much where I had them.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they have a pretty good shot at that. I mean, if they could steal that win at Michigan State, then maybe they get to 8 and go 8-4. That's the reason why I think that's a big game. If they could steal that win, why? All right, so from there, we're going to go to Michigan. And, of course, Michigan, last 2 years, have made the college football playoffs. They got J.J. McCarthy back. Of course, they went 13-1 last year, went 9-0 in the Big Ten. Harbaugh is 74-25 there, and he is starting his 9th year. This is a season, quite honestly, it's college football playoff or bust.
Yeah, I mean, they get Blake Corum back, which he's coming off an injury. They get Donovan Edwards back. I still think the crown goes through Ann Arbor, the East Division. I think it goes through Ann Arbor. Ohio State will be there. But the biggest thing is they lost 2 starters off their offensive line, Michigan did. So they're going to have to regroup there. And they also lost Ronnie Bell. I think he had like 62 catches last year. So McCarthy's going to have to find another target to offset that. So And their defense, I think they lost Mike Morris and Mozzie Smith. They went to the NFL, but they got Junior Colson back. They got Will Johnson back at cornerback, and they got Mason Graham back, and they got Derek Moore back. So their defense ain't going to be bad, if you know what I'm saying. Their defense is going to be pretty good.
I mean,
their defense is always
they're
good.
loaded for a chance or for a run back at the college football playoffs.
They are.
I mean, quite honestly, I'm sure every one of them in Ann Arbor is thinking that they should challenge or win the title.
What kills me about this Michigan stuff is let's fire Harbaugh. But has he not been to the playoffs the last 2 years?
He has.
And
he's beat Ohio State. He finally got Ohio State off his back.
Listen, hey, if you, as a Kentucky fan, wouldn't you like to have back-to-back playoffs? I mean, and you're saying you're sitting here wanting to fire your coach after two.
The only thing that I could come up with that, as far as keys to the season that they might be able to improve on, is to generate a little bit more pressure off the defensive line. You know, the year before that, they lost quite a bit to the NFL with, and then last year they didn't quite generate as much. So my key to the season was to generate a little bit more pressure from the defensive line.
And that's why TCU ate their lunch. Like they couldn't match what TCU was bringing. But Michigan had the offense to offset that. You know what I mean? They done really well last year offensively.
They hung with them, you know.
Yeah.
So, you know, that was my key to the season for Michigan. Top transfer in, I've got Ladarius Henderson from Arizona State. He is a offensive tackle, 6'5", 310 pounds, offensive tackle. It's really going to help them on their offensive line, I think. And then the key losses, of course, you got Cade McNamara gone to Iowa, and you got the tight end Eric All that transferred out as well.
Ronnie Bell went to the NFL too. So
yeah.
But my biggest player to me for Michigan this year is J.J. McCarthy. They're going to go on his arm, because Michigan's always going to have a decent defense.
There's your key player, J.J. McCarthy.
That's my key player right there. He's crucial to this offense.
Absolutely.
And Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards, you just don't know how a guy is going to come back after an injury like that. But when they're healthy, that's the best 1-2 punch in college football. I don't care what they say.
Yeah, I mean, I have J.J. McCarthy as the key player for them as well. So, key game, when you look at their schedule, I think it's all the way into November. I've got key game listed at Penn State, November the 11th.
Yeah, because have I not said in the past that that's a game they always seem to have trouble with?
Yeah. And it's at Penn State this time. And Penn State has it lined up. And, I think they possibly could pick one of them off this year.
Yeah, I'm in that same argument.
Yeah. I don't know which one. I'm not going to sit here and tell you for sure which one. But I think Penn State is in that realm that they possibly could get Ohio State or Michigan, at least one of them. So I have that listed as Michigan's key game. It's November the 11th. And it's at Penn State.
Yeah.
Best players for Michigan, you've mentioned a bunch of them already. You got Corum back as the running back. You got McCarthy as their quarterback. A couple of others that maybe you haven't mentioned. I'm going to mention defensive tackle Chris Jenkins. He's a senior.
Yeah,
he's offensive guard Zach Zenter.
Zenter
he's a senior as well. And then
Keegan and Barnhart's back too. So
yeah, and then I'm also going to mention another running back, Donovan Edwards.
Mm-hmm.
He's a junior, and he spells Corum, and he's a pretty good back. So
yeah.
I think that's some of the better players on Michigan. Fun facts. Maybe this one will be a little bit more fun for Michigan fans because they were so good last year. But they converted, listen to this, 81% on fourth down last year. Fourth down, 81%. They went 17 of 21 on fourth down conversions. That's smoking right there.
Yeah, that's getting after it.
Yeah. All right. Do a quick look at their schedule. And I'll be honest with you. Michigan has one of the weaker schedules in the country. They play home, East Carolina, UNLV, and Bowling Green. And by the way, Harbaugh is suspended for those 3 games.
Yeah, that's another thing.
But it's East Carolina, UNLV, and Bowling Green at home in Ann Arbor. So I really don't expect it to be too much of nothing.
No.
Then they play Rutgers at Minnesota. At Nebraska, at Minnesota, Indiana, at Michigan State, open date, Purdue at home, at Penn State, at Maryland, and Ohio State at home is how they finished the year.
Yeah.
So, when you look at their schedule, it's almost like they don't even get tested until that November the 11th game.
No.
Honestly.
I had to charge my computer up. That's why I was moving around.
Yeah, you're good, man. So,
yeah.
I've got their win total set at 10.5. Do you think they can go over 10.5?
It just all depends on that Ohio State game.
I think 11-1 is where they want to be and where they need to be.
I think that Ohio State game is probably going to be for the Big Ten. Whoever wins that is going to have an upper hand to get to the playoffs.
That's fair. All right, so we're going to move on to Michigan State.
All right, let's see.
I'm going to take a look here at the comments. We got a comment over here.
Let's see.
Bruce Allen. What's up, Bruce?
What's going on, guys? I didn't even see it. But the thing about Michigan State, they had that breakthrough year in 21. And, man, they fell on their face last year.
But they done it with a terrible defense. And I told people all season long that it was a fluke that they won those games with giving up the amount of yards and points that they gave up on defense. So Mel Tucker is starting his 4th year. He's 18-14 at Michigan State.
Mm-hmm.
They went 5-7 last year, missed a bowl game. Went 3-6 in the Big Ten. And that's off of an 11-2 record in 21.
And the year they beat Michigan, I think they beat Michigan too at home. Yeah.
Yeah.
I tell you what's going to hurt them. They do get Peyton Thorne back, but they're going to really miss Jaden Reed. Reed was one of their big-time threats. I think offensively he'll hurt them a little bit, but They went pretty hard in the portal though, so they went after.
So if I'm looking at keys to the season, I'm going to compare 2021 and 2022. Okay.
Yeah.
In 2021, when they had a chance to score, they scored, and they like run up the scoreboard, even though they were giving up a bunch of points on defense, and won games. Last year, their offense stalled out a lot.
A lot of times, yeah.
Their offense stalled out a lot. And when their offense started stalling out last year, they wound up 5-7 instead of 11-2. And that's a huge difference. And I think
and it didn't help. It didn't help.
They've got to
defense
find some
either.
kind of medium in there where they can punch the ball in and not stall on offense quite so much.
Their offense stalled, and then it put their defense in a peculiar situation. Like they couldn't make stops. Yeah. They couldn't do this, and I think they ranked last in yards per play in the conference. So, and I think a lot of that had to do with the guys up front. They didn't have any guy to get to the quarterback, and that was their biggest issue.
Yeah,
but that's going to have to improve this year. And Mel Tucker's done a good job with that program. He's going out and recruiting, and he's doing the things he needs to do in the transfer portal.
Yeah, really good year off of that 11-2 year recruiting. Not quite as good this past season.
It wasn't the best, no.
All right, so top transfers in and out. I have the defensive end, five-star guy, I'm pretty sure, from Adelaide from Texas A&M as one of their top transfers in. Their biggest loss is going to be throwing balls at Auburn this year, and that's probably Peyton Thorne. He's been their starter for a couple of years at quarterback at Michigan State, and he is transferred out.
That's right. He transferred to Auburn, didn't he?
He transferred to Auburn. Their quarterback transferred to Auburn, and that's going to be an issue. He has over 6,000 yards the last 2 years, 46 touchdowns passing for Michigan State, and he's no longer there. So that's a big loss.
I was reading on my notes. Apparently, he transferred after this was made. So he must have transferred pretty.
He did. He transferred late.
Yeah,
he transferred this summer.
Yeah.
It was this summer sometime he transferred. Yeah.
So.
All right. Key players. And I'm gonna piggyback on this, okay? I think their key player could be their quarterback, Noah Kim. He's a junior. He's been sitting behind Peyton Thorne for 2 years. Now Peyton is transferred out. I think it's going to be. I think it's going to be absolute key that he can step in and be a good quarterback for them. For Michigan State to have any kind of decent season. All right, key game. I'm going to move on to key game for me, for Michigan State. It's going to be second week right off the bat. It might be the third week. They play Washington September the 16th. And Washington has got one hell of an offense, and they're coming in with 2,000-yard receivers. Michael Penix Jr., the Pac-12 leader in yards last year, over Caleb Williams. And they've got,
You look at their schedule, though, because they have Central Michigan, Richmond to start, but then they have Washington, then they play Maryland, then they play at Iowa, which Iowa's not a – Kinnick Stadium's not an easy place.
That's a big game, too, for them.
But then you start going a little bit farther. They play Michigan, at Minnesota, which will be improved, Nebraska, at Ohio State, and at Indiana, which is going to be improved, and then at Penn State to end the year. I think they'll get bowl eligibility, but I think that's about as far as they'll go. I don't think they're going to go to a big-time bowl. I mean, it's just –
Yeah, I mean, when I think it's going to be key for their quarterback, to step in and play some kind of ball, because if he don't, why – some of their best players, I've got linebackers as the top two players. Winman, senior linebacker, and Halliday, a junior linebacker. And then I also have a defensive end and a defensive tackle as some of their better players, and that's Barrow and that Adelaide that transferred in. He's a sophomore from Texas A&M. I think those are going to be some of their better players. Now, Noah Kim, I have down the list about 6 or 7, but he's got to step up and play big. That's their quarterback that's going to be stepping in as a junior. So those are some of the players that I have mentioned. If you got other ones, you can go ahead and throw them in there.
No, you pretty much nailed it. So,
all right. So, fun fact: Michigan State only held the ball for 26 minutes of possession time last year. Their opponents got 34 minutes. I think that's got to be a little bit more balanced if they're going to have the kind of season that they are hoping for. All right. You kind of already went through their schedule, but real quick, they got Central Michigan, Richmond at home, Washington at home, Maryland at home. Then they go at Iowa, open date, at Rutgers, Michigan at home, at Minnesota, and then November is Nebraska at home, at Ohio State, at Indiana, and home Penn State. Actually, that game is in Detroit.
Yeah, it's in Detroit, yeah.
That game's in Detroit. The Penn State game is.
Yeah.
I've got their over-under win total set at 6. And I'm not sure that they get there. I'm really not sure that they get there. I think Washington probably picks them off at home. I don't know that they can beat Iowa on the road.
Yeah, it's a uphill.
To me, they're not beating Michigan. I think Minnesota on the road is going to be a tough one. They're not beating Ohio State at home. I mean, on the road. And I don't know that they can beat Penn State in Detroit.
Well, looking at that schedule, it's probably best to just go with the 6 wins. I mean, if you look at it,
I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go even worse. I'm gonna go that they match what they did last year and go 5-7. I really am.
Yeah, because the quarterback position is what's kind of got me because they had and then they had Jaden Reed last year, which he's gone to the NFL now.
Yeah.
They're gonna have to have some guys step up if they're wanting to have a big year. So
I think Michigan State is a team that could be in trouble with back-to-back years of missing a bowl game.
Let me just say they'll go 5. Let's just do 5. That'll work.
What's that?
We'll do 5 wins.
All right, so I'm going to move on to Minnesota.
So how many teams have we done so far?
Minnesota's got P.J. Fleck. He's in his.
How many teams have we done so far since I first got here?
5 or 6 since you got 4 or 5 since you got here. So I'm
Okay.
going to move on to Minnesota. We got P.J. Fleck. He's in his 7th year, 44-27. They went 9-4 last year.
Mm-hmm.
You know, how many years is P.J. Fleck going to have to do it before people say, well, can he do it next year? Well, but can he do it next year? He's done it back-to-back like 2 or 3 years in a row now, so aren't we getting to a point where we expect Minnesota to win?
Yeah, you're expecting them to win at least more than what they need to win. And I tell you, everybody talks about their offense. Their defense only allowed 13 points a game last year. They had a real stingy defense last year.
Absolutely.
I mean, it was a really good defense.
Yeah, and that's one of the keys to me is one of the keys to me for them is, their pass defense. Yes. Because their run defense is absolutely excellent.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to try to move a little bit quicker so we can get through some of these. But, all right, so transfer in, I've got Sean Tyler from Western Michigan as the top. He's a running back that transferred in. And transferring out, I've got Trill Carter. He's a defensive tackle that transferred to Texas.
Yeah, Carter's a big loss for them.
Yeah.
Sean,
he was a big defensive tackle for them.
Sean Tyler's he was a big boost. He was really good at Western Michigan. So he'll help them out.
Yeah.
In which PJ Fleck, you got to know he knows Western Michigan. He runs the ball, yeah. And he coached at Western Michigan,
Right.
So he's got that pipeline there, yeah.
So their quarterback is one of their key players that I have listed as a key player. And I don't know how to pronounce that last name. Starts with a K, ends with Manis. I'm not sure.
Kalakamanis, something like that.
Kalakamanis or something. He's a sophomore. He's going to be replacing Tanner Morgan. And that's the reason why I have him listed as a key player. Tanner Morgan has been an absolute mainstay in that offense for at least 3 years. And, he's going to be replacing Tanner Morgan in that offense. And if they're going to keep the, 8-4, 9-4, records up, I think him stepping in to replace Tanner Morgan is going to be key to that. Key game, I think looking at their schedule, one of the key games that you could pick would be at Iowa, October 21st. I think that's going to be a really key game for them and one that could turn their season one way or another from being 6-6 to 8-4 kind of deal. So I think that's a key game. The best players, I've already mentioned Sean Tyler, the running back that transferred in. Ottman Bell, a wide receiver, is probably going to be their best player on the team. He's a senior wide receiver. And then they have a great tight end by the name of Span Ford. His last name is. I think those are going to be, on the offensive side of the ball. Defensively, Lindenberg, their linebacker, Cody Lindenberg is probably their best player on defense. That or the safety, Newbin. Fun stat. Looking at, for them, their time of possession, they possessed the ball almost 35 minutes a game, and the opponents only get 25. In the second quarter,
that's going to change a
they
lot.
scored 120. In the second quarter, they scored 120 points. Yeah. 120 points, and the opponents only had 36 in the second quarter last year.
Well, that's going to change with the rules change, with the clock moving, and it's going to be a lot different this year, I think.
Yeah. All right, their schedule. Home, Nebraska, Eastern Michigan, away at North Carolina, at Northwestern, Louisiana at home, Michigan at home, open date at Iowa, Michigan State at home, Illinois at home, at Purdue, at Ohio State, and Wisconsin at home to end the year.
The biggest thing with Minnesota.
For me, I have their win total set. I have their win total set at 7.5.
Well, my biggest
that's
concern
where I got
is,
it set.
My biggest concern is they're breaking in new pieces at quarterback and running back. So it's going to take them some time to figure out what they're doing. And
yeah,
I think you nailed it. About 7 wins, 8 wins, something like that.
Yeah, I got it 7.5. I'm going to give them 8-4. I think they can get that.
Well,
with
PJ Fleck always has a good team, though.
Yeah, so that's where I've got them. I'm going to give them 8-4. I'm going to check our comments real quick. Looks like we got another one. James Bowman, what's up, James? Appreciate you guys being on with us. All right, so from there, we're going to Nebraska. We just did Minnesota. We're going to Nebraska. Nebraska, of course, this year has a new head coach with Matt Rule. He is really picking up a lot of, home state players and stuff in the recruiting trail that'd be coming in for next year. But we got to talk about his first year here at Nebraska. They went 4-8 last year. Of course, Scott Frost was fired. And they bring in Matt Rule, and he has a pretty good track record of turning programs around.
He does. And the thing
I think one of the keys to the season, is stop the run. And then when you do that, stop the run again. And then when you do that, stop the run again. I think that's one of the keys to the season.
Yeah, they didn't do a good real job last year. And I'll be honest with you, their offense has got to change. The offense was atrocious last year, and it just wasn't really tuned up. It wasn't really good. But I'll say this: call your local fire department, because something's burning down. Nebraska's going to go bowling for the first time since 2016. I think there's a shot. I mean, the schedule ain't that bad.
Yeah.
It's not really.
We'll talk about it. All right. Top transfers in and out. I've got tight end Eric Gilbert transferring in from Georgia. And then out, I've got Ernest Hausman, linebacker that transferred to Michigan.
I'll say this. He was talking about their defense. Stop the run, stop the run. They bring back 8 starters off this team from last year. So there's going to be some experience there.
They gave up like 175 yards a game rushing.
Yeah, it's it's not good, but at the same time, what's that old saying? You can get better.
Some experience. Yeah.
Each and every year you get experience, and you can get better every single year. Which I think.
All right. So
Matt Rule is going to do a good job anyway. So
they have an edge guy that's a freshman, that's coming in as a freshman. All right. and he's got an absolutely crazy last name. I'm not even going to try to pronounce it. His first name is Prince Will. Prince Will. That's his first name. And he starts with a U. I don't know how to pronounce that, but he's an edge rusher. And I think he could be absolutely key to this defense improving. He's 6'4", 230 pounds, out of Texas. He's the kind of guy that could be a game changer. And like I said, he is a freshman, so we'll see what happens. But I am going to throw his name out as a key player.
Can we go to the schedule real quick?
I'm going to get there. Hang on just a minute. My key game is at Colorado.
Yeah, that's the biggest game. But you got to think here.
September 9th.
Look at their schedule. They play Northern Illinois at home, Louisiana Tech, Iowa, Maryland, Northwestern, Purdue. Then they go on the road to Illinois, play Michigan at home, which I think they'll lose at home to Michigan, but at Michigan State, at Minnesota, at Wisconsin. There is a chance in there they can get 6 wins.
Well, they're going to have to win this key game against Colorado. They are not getting the 6 wins if they can't win this game the second week of the season against Colorado and Deion Sanders.
No,
all the talk is going to be about Deion Sanders and all the players we brought in and prime time. That all the talk. You won't hear crap about Matt Rule and him being a first-year head coach. All you're going to hear is Deion Sanders. And It is a huge rivalry game between Colorado and Nebraska, old Big 12 rivalry game. And I think it's absolute key for this team to get 5 or 6 wins.
It's a really key game, I think.
Yeah. All right. Best players. Give you a few names real quick. Quarterback Jeff Sims. Billy Kemp is a wide receiver that's a senior. And they've got a cornerback by the name of Newsom. He's a senior. And a linebacker, Raymer, that is a senior. I think that's going to be some of their best players. Mm-hmm. Fun stats. There wasn't too much fun going on in Nebraska last year, just to be quite honest with you. So they gave up 67% on 4th down conversions last year. So, like you said, that's probably not going to be too fun. You kind of looked over their schedule already. I'm going to set their win total at 6. Mm-hmm. Might even do 5.5. Let's do 5.5. I'll set their win total at 5.5. Do you think they can get above that? Above or below?
There's a chance. Like you said, it's all about, can they win that first game? That's the big key. Can they beat?
I think that Colorado game at home, it's the home game. They get them at home. I think that's going to be a big game. If they can get that win, I think they get to 6 wins. I really do.
If
With the schedule that they have,
if they beat Nebraska, they get a bowl game.
If they beat Colorado. We're talking about
Colorado, my bad. They don't beat themselves.
Yeah.
If they beat Colorado, they'll get a bowl game, I think.
All right. So I'm going to move on to Northwestern. Northwestern is in.
Did you really have to? Did you really have to tonight? Did you really have to tonight?
Do what?
I said, did you really have to go this route tonight? Northwestern.
Yeah. So Northwestern. I'm just going to be honest with you. I'm going to kind of skip over them a little bit. They are in a survival mode right now, I think. Mm-hmm. Northwestern is. I mean, Pat Fitzgerald has been their horse that they have rode as a player, as a coach for years and years and years. And they are now in some trouble with all of this stuff that's going on. They have an interim head coach. David Braun is his name. They were 1-11 last year anyway. And I'm just going to be honest with you. I think they're in survival mode. If they could get 3 wins this year, it would be an absolute plus.
Here's a key stat. Since we're doing fun stats, Northwestern, since playing for the Big 10 championship in 2020, they are 4-20 over the last 2 years.
Yeah. Oh, I know. They were 1-11 last year.
That's not good.
Yeah. Like I said, if they could just get to a point where, they would have a shot at 3 wins, I think they would be pretty happy. I've got them set at 3 wins. And, they play at Rutgers, they play UTEP, they play at Duke, Minnesota, Penn State, they play Howard. If they could pick up 3 or 4 wins, I think that would be a win for them. Like that would be uplifting to them at Northwestern.
Yeah, it would.
If they could pick up 3 or 4 wins. All right, so let's go to Ohio State. Of course, Ohio State has got Ryan Day, and he's 46 and whatever. I don't know. He's way up there. 45-6. He's only lost 6 games out of 51. All right. In 4 years. He's only been there 4 years, and he's played 51 games.
And he's got probably one of the best receiving corps in America.
Oh, yeah. And his receiving corps is will challenge NFL receiving corps, okay? The only receiving corps that even comes close is Washington. Washington has 2,000-yard receivers.
Travion Henderson and Mayan Williams might be the best 2 prolific ground game in college football. This team, and they added Michael Hartline as, I think he's the offensive coordinator now. The defense lost a couple of guys, but they fixed that in the transfer portal. So there's not a lot of concerns there. And they got a unbelievable coordinator in Jim Knowles. And it's only his 2nd year, and he's already doing the things that he's doing.
Yeah. So my key to the season in big games like against Penn State and Michigan, their defense cannot get gouged.
No.
In the last 2 years, in the biggest games against the elite talent, their defense has been getting gouged.
It has.
So to me, that's one of the keys to them. Transfers out. They lost J.K. Johnson to LSU, and they brought in Josh Simmons from San Diego State, an offensive tackle. Key players, I think Josh Fryer, senior offensive tackle, is going to be a key player for them.
You know who else is going to be a key player? Kyle McCord. He's the guy to replace Mark Stroud, JT Stroud.
Kyle McCord, I've got him on here as another name.
CJ Stroud.
Yeah. Yeah, he's going to be replacing CJ Stroud, which is a big shoes to fill, by the way.
But
I mean,
I know they lost.
big.
I know they lost C.J. Stroud, but when you can go in there as a quarterback and look at the receiving room that they got, that gives you a little hope.
Just get it close to Harrison, and he's catching it. So
he's catching it pretty much every time.
Yeah. All right.
Did you see the catch last year that he made on the sideline? The one where his foot was hanging off the.
A few of them, man. I mean, he's elite, man. Elite. All right. So, key game. You know, you can look at their schedule and you can talk about some other games if you want, but I've got at Michigan, last game of the season, November 25th.
Mm-hmm.
If you're Ohio State, what other key game could you possibly have? I mean, I know Notre Dame is early in the year. That'll be a key game for them, you know, and they play Penn State.
Just be honest, the game is the biggest one of the year.
Yeah. I mean,
because basically they're playing for a title in that game. Like, because there's nobody that has.
I mean, unless Notre Dame knocks them off and Penn State knocks them off.
Yeah,
then,
but
you know,
who really has the talent that Michigan and Ohio State possess in the Big Ten?
Sam Hartman's going to catch fire. That's all I know. I don't know.
Well, I mean,
I'm just throwing it out there.
Better hope for a Hail Mary and a prayer is all I can say.
I'm just throwing it out there, man. Of course, the best players, there is nobody, to me, the best player in the country. I'm including all the quarterbacks. The best player in the country is Marvin Harrison Jr. Mark it down. The best player in the country.
He's tough. He's legit.
I'm telling you.
He can do things that, he can do things that a lot of receivers can't do, man. And
their other wide receiver is amazing as well, but Marvin Harrison Jr., I mean, if you want some fun stats, go watch Marvin Harrison Jr. That's all I'm going to say. I mean, watch his catches on the sideline and the stuff that he does in the back of the end zone. And, I mean, it's just amazing. Fun stat for them, they had 42 passing touchdowns. The opponents only had 19. Last year.
That's pretty good.
All right, schedule. Indiana, Youngstown State, Western Kentucky, at Notre Dame, fourth game of the year. That's the one I was saying you could say is a key game. Open date, Maryland at home, at Purdue, Penn State at home, at Wisconsin, at Rutgers, Michigan State at home, Minnesota at home, and at Michigan.
There's only 2 games in there that Ohio State possibly could have a test.
Notre Dame on the road is going to be a tough game. That's
I'll put them as 3.
Yeah.
On the road at Notre Dame, on the road at Wisconsin, and is the Michigan game a home game this year?
Yeah, it's at Michigan. It's at Ann Arbor.
Well, it's at Ann Arbor. Well, that's the third game that'll be the test. So those 3, because Wisconsin's going to be a lot better this year than.
And then they get Penn State at home.
And Penn State at home. So, and Ohio State's pretty good at home.
So I've got their win total set the same as Michigan, 10.5. At 10.5, their schedule is a little tougher than Michigan's. If you look at if you compare the schedule, Ohio State's schedule is a little tougher than Michigan's.
It is. But let's just say they get to the winner of the Michigan-Ohio State game has an easier access to the college football playoff. The loser has to hope that one of them loses in the Big Ten championship.
I mean, I'm still going to pick them 11-1.
Yeah.
But I think there is a possibility that Ohio State could go 10-2 and lose their minds because their season's awful.
Yeah. Imagine that.
I mean, God forbid they go 10-2.
Yeah. Oh, geez, man. We just want that around these parts of the country.
I mean, they'll be jumping off bridges.
Yeah, exactly.
If they go 10-2 and get beat by Michigan.
Yeah, that's just how it is in that rivalry, man.
A third year in a row.
Third year in a row. I mean,
I'm telling you.
That's like
I'm telling you right now.
Means of being fired or something, man. Like that's.
All right, let's get to Penn State. We got Penn State. James Franklin is unbelievably in his 10th year at Penn State.
Don't seem like he's been there that long, has it?
This is his 10th year. They went 11-2 last year. They're always right there. They're always knocking on the door. They just can't get past Michigan and Ohio State. He just can't beat them and get past Michigan and Ohio State. That's the only teams he dominates. Just about everybody else, except for 2 years ago, he had a little bit of a down year. But for the most part, he is 78-36 at Penn State. Went 11-2 last year. Has a great team back and lined up. And
to be fair about Penn State, their wide receivers there's some question marks at receivers for Penn State, but their running game is pretty good. Their offensive line is going to be really good. They got the quarterback Drew Allar. He's a rising star. Quarterback coming in to replace Sean Clifford, and I tell you what, Penn State's going to miss. I got my keys is don't forget how good the running backs are. Yeah, and the defense is still going to be good. You know, they lost Jair Brown. They lost Joey Porter Jr. to the NFL. But they're bringing back one of the best linebackers in the country named Abdul Carter. And they bring back Isaac and Chop Robinson. And I'll be honest with you, Manny Diaz, I think he's coming from Miami. Well, I think he was at Miami, I think. And he's coming into a really good situation, I think, at defensive coordinator. So there's a lot to be desired for Penn State in terms of offensively in certain spots. But if they do like they always done all year, they're going to be really good. Because Penn State always seems to have that one game where they go absolutely nuts and win. I don't care who it is.
Yeah.
And it's usually they're playing in Happy Valley with the whiteout. It's when it happens. So.
All right. So you was talking about Joey Porter Jr. I think a replacement and one of the key players for them is going to be Johnny Dixon, cornerback senior. To be kind of the lead guy for their secondary, to replace what Joey Porter Jr. was last year. I think he's going to be a key for their defense.
Mm-hmm. Joey Porter's a big loss. I mean, that's a huge loss. And
key game, I have Michigan November the 11th as a key game for them. They get them at home, and the Ohio State game is on the road this year. So, when you're looking at Penn State, those are the two games. Like, they really have trouble getting past those two wins or those two games and getting wins in those two games. And that's where James Franklin, that's the only thing that he hasn't really been able to do at Penn State
Well,
on any kind of consistency?
their non-conference slate is, let's just be honest, it's soft as the other side of the field. Like it's not good.
Yeah, yeah.
But I don't have. I look at this from another perspective. You know, they get an upgraded quarterback.
They
Like
do.
their quarterback play has not been real good the last couple of years, and I say my over pick would be 10. I don't think they're going to lose twice in the same year. If they do lose twice, it's going to be to Michigan and Ohio State.
Yeah, I mean, so their schedule, they play West Virginia, Delaware, at Illinois, Iowa at home, at Northwestern, open date, UMass at home, at Ohio State, Indiana at home, at Maryland, which would be a little bit of a test, Michigan at home, Rutgers at home, and at Michigan State. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I've got their win-loss. When you look at their schedule, DraftKings has it set at 9.5. I really think it should be 10, really. Like when you look at their schedule, I can, 10-2 is, I think that's where they should be. And if they could beat one of the two, then maybe they have a chance of being in the, to upset the apple cart in the Big Ten between Michigan and Ohio State.
Which I don't think they're going to lose twice in the same year, except to those two teams. Yeah. Unless they just completely lay an egg,
So when I look at their schedule, I say 10-2. I don't know what you saying, but that's what I say.
That's what I'm going with.
All right, so we got Purdue. Next up, Purdue's got a first-year head coach coming in. They lost Jeff Brom. He went to Louisville. Ryan Walters is his name, and he is a true first-year head coach.
He also got Hudson Card,
offensive line,
the quarterback from Texas. He got a good pickup out of transfer portal.
Yeah. And he's offensive-minded, kind of like Brom was, but he is a true first-year head coach.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I will tell him, so my key to the season for Purdue, if you're a first-year head coach, it's okay to run the ball a little bit.
It is.
All right?
Here's
it's
the
okay
problem.
To run. I want to tell you, Ryan Walters, if you ever pay attention or watch this show, it's okay to run the ball a little bit.
Yeah, it is.
Okay?
Here's the thing. I know we don't need to look at their schedule, but this is where the first year of his campaign, he has but the schedule is so hard. They play Fresno State, Syracuse, at Virginia Tech, at Iowa, at Michigan, and not to mention he gets Wisconsin at home. That's a big one, and he gets Indiana, Illinois, Northwestern on the road. But that schedule is daunting.
I mean,
he got road games.
My key game is that Wisconsin game is my key game for him.
Yeah. There's a 4-game stretch. There's a 4-game stretch starting in October where he has to play Iowa, Nebraska, and Michigan with Ohio State sandwiched in between them.
Yeah.
That's tough.
Yeah. It is. My key game for them is Wisconsin, September 23rd.
I'm just going to go with it right now. I got 5 wins.
And that
I
might
don't
be
see.
where
I
they
don't.
settle. I don't know.
I don't see them winning 6 games, especially with that schedule.
I mean, they got a new coach. They,
Which they got
a
to up.
brand
I
new
mean,
coach.
their quarterback play is another question mark. You
The
don't know what
quarterback
Hudson
is
Card
coming
is going to
in
run.
from Texas. I mean, he's got talent, but he's not been playing. So, you know,
Yeah.
um,
So,
so there is some question marks with this Purdue team for sure.
there he is. I agree.
And you say, I mean, I have their win total set at 6 because I think bowl eligibility. I mean, bowl eligibility would be what they would be shooting for. But you said you got them at 5 and 7.
I do. I just don't think they're going to win. Like, I don't think they're going to win that many games. I just don't.
All right. You already kind of went through and talked about their schedule, so we'll move on. This is taking quite a bit to run through 14 teams. So,
how many more we got left?
I knew these would. 3. I knew these would run a little bit longer.
Yeah, they're
all right. So we got Rutgers coming up. Yeah, Rutgers. You got Greg Schiano. He's in his 15th year there, in his second stint. That's his second stint there. He was 4-8 last year, 1-8 in the Big Ten last year. Does Rutgers make any noise at all in the Big Ten this year, do you think? Do they have any players coming in? I mean, their key players, probably their quarterback. Gavin
not
Winston.
right now. I mean, in order for them to take a step forward, though, they're going to have to get a better offensive rhythm. Their offense was just not good last year. Quarterback play was bad. I think they.
So does Schiano survive another like 4-8, 3-9 season at Rutgers?
I don't know. I really don't know.
I mean, I got a key game listed at Virginia Tech, September the 16th. Virginia Tech is not going to be a good team.
I'll say this. They do have a chance to improve, though, because they returned 7 starters on defense. So there's a chance there for their defense to be better. How many did they win last year? 4?
Yeah, they were 4-8.
I say we be good to them and give them a 5 this year. I mean, there's just not. I just don't think there's a lot of talent.
If you look at their team, their best players are all defensive players.
Yeah, they're all defensive players.
Their top 6 or 7 players are all defensive players.
They're defensive players.
Defensive end, cornerback, 2 linebackers.
And he had to fix, and Schiano had to fix a lot of the secondary because there's a lot of holes in it. So
their strong suit on this team is definitely going to be their defense.
It is.
For sure.
It is.
I've got their win total set at 4.5. That's what I've got their win total set as.
Here's the thing. Rutgers has only won 5 games once in the last 8 years. I think they'll go 3-0 in non-conference. But that's not a guaranteed either. Because, they play Temple, Wagner, I think it's Virginia Tech.
And Virginia Tech. They get Northwestern at home to open the season.
That's in the Big Ten opener, I think.
Yeah, it is to open the season.
There's a chance they can win that game.
Yeah.
But I got them going 5 and 7.
Outside of that, when you look at their schedule, I mean, they get Michigan State at home. Can they win that? They go on the road at Indiana. Can they win that? And outside of that, I don't really see any other wins.
I don't either.
So I think 4 or 5 wins if you're going to give them 5, I'll say 4, and I set their win total at 4.5.
Yeah,
So I think that's kind of where they are at for Rutgers.
Mm-hmm. What's the last 2 teams we got here?
And then the last team, actually, this one's the last team. We did Purdue, so Wisconsin is the last team.
Okay. Well,
and Wisconsin has a first new head coach, not a first-year head coach, but a new head coach for them. Luke Fickell comes from Cincinnati, he built a powerhouse there.
What Wisconsin is trying to do isn't easy in one off season. But he's the type of coach that could get them to that standard because he's a really great coach. The defense is going to be really good.
Well, Wisconsin has a decent personnel.
They do. But the style of play is what I'm getting at. It's to recruit all that.
Yeah, they're going to be a little different. Yeah.
It's going to be a little different. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, they have
when
to
you
play
look at
Ohio
their
State.
schedule, and we'll do that in a minute.
There are wins to be on the schedule now. I mean,
if you look at their schedule, they've got some wins on their schedule. I don't think it's too far-fetched to say that this Wisconsin team could rebound and be 8-4. I really don't think that's a stretch.
And possibly win 9 games or 10. Because if you look at it, their non-conference schedule is Buffalo at Washington State, which that'd be I think that we talked about that last night. That would be a difficult second game. At Georgia Southern. And then this is where it gets kind of tricky. They play at Illinois. Well, this ain't in a row. At Indiana, home against Iowa, at Minnesota, Nebraska, Northwestern, and Rutgers, all at home. And they only get the really hardest game that they got is Ohio State, in which they play at Purdue, which
I'm telling you, you look at their schedule, and 8 or 9 wins is possible. I really do think it is.
It's there, yeah.
So they're still in divisions. And Wisconsin is in that opposite division.
Yeah, in the East they get Indiana and Rutgers. So okay. The over and under on this one, I want to say 10. But I'm going to go the safe route.
I had their over and under set at 8, and that's off of what they did last year and stuff. But when you look at their schedule, I think they could win 8 or 9 games pretty easily. I think.
I do.
And well. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that their division, it's going to come down to Wisconsin and Iowa. I think in their division, to play in the championship game, it's going to come down to Wisconsin and Iowa. Illinois might have a chance of a little say-so in there. That would be my third team that I would put in on that side. But when you look at division-wise, I think it's Wisconsin and Iowa.
Yeah, I do too. I'm just going to put it out there. They're going to win 10.
You got them 10?
I was going to go the safe route and go 9, but there's a chance for them to win 10 games on this schedule. You know what this schedule reminds me of? We'll be talking about them later, but it's favorable like Louisville's schedule is. There's 9 or 10 wins on this schedule.
It is. They have a favorable – I'm telling you, Wisconsin has a favorable schedule this year in the Big Ten.
They
really do.
That's a fact. So I'm going team.
All right. So what two teams you got playing in the championship game?
It's hard to pick. It's hard to pick against Michigan. I mean, but I'm going to say that this is the year Ohio State finally gets them back, and they go into Ann Arbor and they take care of business. And
It'll be a tough one, but they might.
I say it's going to be Ohio State and Wisconsin for the championship again. Oh well,
Ohio State and Wisconsin.
They played before against each other, I think, a couple of years. So,
yeah.
I think Wisconsin gets in the winner.
I'll go opposite. I'll go opposite. Since you went Ohio State and Wisconsin, I'll go Michigan and Iowa. And go completely opposite.
And
that way we can cover. I think that's going to be your four teams.
It is.
And I'll pick Michigan as my conference winner.
I think I'm going to pick Wisconsin as my winner. Or not Wisconsin, Ohio State.
All right.
I think Ohio State is the team to beat this year in the Big Ten.
And I think I've already mentioned my player of the year a time or two. There's nobody better than Marvin Harris Jr.
That's who I'm going after.
To me, he's the player of the year in the Big Ten. I know you got J.J. McCarthy in there that's going to have a little say-so in that, and people lean towards quarterbacks. So, Marvin Harrison might not get it, okay? But he is clearly the best player in the Big Ten.
He is. I agree.
That's my take on it. So, guys, we went through the whole Big Ten. Some of these things are a little long, but once we kind of get back to not doing these previews, we'll get back to our regular hour and a half, hour and 20-minute shows. But, getting through these entire conferences and talking about each team takes a little bit of time. So so they'll know I won't be on for the ACC. The girl will be on for the ACC. Is that next week? Yeah, the ACC is next week. Yeah,
I'll be back. I'll be back for the SEC portion of it. So, she'll be on for the ACC. So, but I had a fun time. I had a fun time tonight, though.
Yep. So we got through the Big Ten. I am using a new stream. I think it was better. John, did it seem better for you? A lot better or just some better?
A lot better. Like you could see, you could hear things, you could talk.
Yeah.
It was a lot easier to manage.
Yeah.
So this might be our new go-to.
Yeah, I am using a new stream and trying something different here tonight. Been having some trouble. So I'm glad things went a little better. I've been trying a lot of different things and spent a little money and still couldn't find a good thing. So I'm
excited. I'm just excited about football season. I mean, we're sitting here talking about it, and it's what, 17, 16 days away?
It starts the 26th. So
you know you're starving for football when you want to watch Vanderbilt in Hawaii on a Saturday.
Hey, Navy and Notre Dame play that day. That's a pretty good one.
Right? Yeah. You know you're starving when you watch that kind of game that early.
Well, all right, guys. Next week, I will be on the 15th on Tuesday night, same time, 8 o'clock, and we will do the ACC preview next week. Might have somebody different on with me. We'll see. We'll talk about that as the week goes on. But College SportsCast will be here and do an ACC preview for you next week. And we appreciate you guys being on with us. And y'all have a good night. And, man, we can't wait for some football.
I'm ready to tackle Brad here tonight. How's that?
We can't wait for some college football, man.
Hey, as Hank Williams says, are you ready for some football?
Y'all have